Start, we're going to take a minute's attunement. Attunement is just a moment to reflect on our make policy and to be pleased and be okay and be ready for what we're about to do. So we'll just spend 1 minute attunement starting from now. Thank you, conference. So just to run through what we're going to be covering this session and to give us an indication of what we all need to know before we start the session. Obviously we need to take great care that noise levels are kept low so that we can keep going, because we've had a few attunements throughout, so I'd like to keep us going as much as possible in this session because we want to get through as much as we can. You have 3 cards, as you probably know. You have an inclusion card, which should only be used for inclusion issues. You have a procedural motion card, which should only be used if you're proposing a procedural motion. And obviously you need the blue voting card today on Sunday. Please speak with consideration to time. We'll allow 2 minutes for each speaker. The purpose of this session is to go through the B section, C section, and then go on to E and D and alternate between E and D as we go through. We will, if you know you're going to be speaking, please make sure you come up to a microphone, either this one here or one of the roving mics, and we can get to you much quicker and save everyone's time. So without further ado, we're going to have, I think SOC are going to come and speak about the voting paper in section B, hopefully. Yes.
Hi conference, I'm Mr. Rossall from SOC. Just wanted to explain, so we've decided the order that we're going to debate things in this final session. We tried to set aside enough time to debate all the different things that have come to conference. Because the Holistic Review Commission report took such a long time to get through, we are not going to have time to hear everything, but we really don't want to waste more of this plenary time debating what to debate. So please just accept our order that we've debated. We're not taking any A motions. I think the most important thing with those reports is that those reports have been brought to conference. You've had an opportunity to read what the committees have been up to, and you've had an opportunity to go to workshops and question those people. There is no formal requirement for us to accept them. We're not going to have time to hear them, I'm sorry. With the B motion, which is a voting paper, the proposals of that motion have agreed to bring it back to next conference because they would prefer that we had a long time to discuss it rather than rushing it through. So our priorities then are the C motions and the remaining B and E motions. So that's what we're going to take. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to section C. Do we need to formally do anything about it? Okay. So we're going to go to section C. It's motion C01, representation of future generations. It's on page 70 of your agenda. If you're looking at the paper, I'm sorry I don't have the electronic one, but that's where it is in the paper. Could I have the proposer, who may be David Flint?
Good afternoon, conference. I'm David Flint of Enfield Green Party. I'm also convener of the Climate Change Policy Working Group. The inspiration for this came partly from the obvious fact that the worst effects of climate change fall on future generations. We see the effects now, but they will be worse for our children and grandchildren and other people's children and grandchildren. So we believe that we need to reflect these interests in the decisions that relate to climate change. And that actually is already in the philosophical basis of the Green Party. If you look in philosophical basis, clause 305, it is clearly stated. 6 months ago, the working group decided to look at this and we decided that we would contribute a paper to the Talanoa Dialogue, something I suspect many of you have not heard of, I certainly haven't, which is part of the United Nations process on climate change. We put together a paper on future representation of future generations. We got it through GPRC, who were extremely helpful and responsive, somewhat to my surprise, but they were. And we put the paper into the United Nations, and I mentioned all this because it had to be done in 3 weeks. So the paper is available on the party website. GPRC said that if, in order that I could do this, I had to bring a motion to conference, and that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing a motion to conference. So the motion notes the support of the paper, it notes the ideas, and it urges party members to use these ideas in advocacy. Now I'll tell you two things more. One is that one of the actual examples of representation of future generations is the Future Generations Commissioner in Wales,
15 seconds,
who has been very useful. And the second is that in reviewing the submissions to the Talanoa Dialogue, the UN referred to representation of future generations as a high promise, cross-cutting principle. That isn't wholly our work, but I think we take some credit for it, and I hope, conference, you will want to support what's been done and take it forward.
Thank you. Have we got a speaker against this motion? I'm going to take the person in the white t-shirt.
Thank you. My name is Paul Suzeko for Cornwall. I think that adopting this motion would be hypocritical of ourselves, because in previous discussions we have rejected the idea of representation of future generations on the Green Party Council, and therefore I think it would be entirely inappropriate for us to be recommending the same principle for other organizations whilst rejecting it for our own organization. If it were to be adopted, then I think that the Council should take note of the last paragraph, which starts with the urges party members, etc., and ensure that there is a person on the Council whose sole responsibility is the representation of future generations. Otherwise, we'll look really silly.
Thank you. I've got another speech in favour. Oh, sorry, I'm really sorry, I forgot to do the workshop report. We've got the workshop report, maybe to do that quickly. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much, Chair. Ed Fraser, Lambeth Green Party. I'll keep this incredibly brief. There are between 40 and 50 people present. There are some questions around the similar role, the Welsh Commissioner role, as David previously mentioned, and some questions about what the party can do to put this into practice. But the motion itself was not contentious. A straw poll was done with 44 and 0 against. Thank you.
Okay, have we got another speaker in favour of the motion? Person in the centre here, in blue top.
Thank you very much. Not yet. Yes, now. Okay, Tony Ferkins, Hounslow Green Party. Firstly, my thanks in particular to Chid and David Flynn for getting the Green Party involved in this dialogue. It's really useful work. I just want to stress one particular aspect which is going to come up tomorrow. The IPCC is going to report on reaching the 1.5 centigrade temperature target. This will be published. And within this report, there may be the concept of overshoot. That is going to 2 centigrade and then bring us back to 1.5 centigrade. I would just like to stress that we should add in the for future generations to take this forward motion. I support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are we minded to move to a vote on the motion? We had two of each. Do you have one against? So we need one more against. Anyone else wanting to speak against? I don't see anyone in either room. Move to the vote. Can all those in favour of the motion C01? Thank you. And all those against? That passes. Thank you. We'll move on to C02. We'll move on to C02, no discrimination union. Could I have the proposer of C02, please, who may or may not be married?
Hi, I'm Mariette Labelle from Hounslow Green Party. Who supports diversity, fights against discrimination, and protects human rights. Therefore, antenatal screening tests should not be used to discriminate against gender, sex characteristics, any community, or disability. This needs to be highlighted now as a new non-invasive prenatal test, known as the NIPT, is currently available from private providers and will soon be rolled out on the NHS in England. It is used primarily to identify a higher chance that the fetus may have Down syndrome, other genetic conditions, or to identify the gender. A society aware of inclusion and diversity would not discriminate against people with Down syndrome. It is important to support quality-assured screening with regulatory standards and apply these regulations to commercial clinics. This includes training programs for all antenatal health practitioners aimed at providing current and accurate information. Training programs also need to include the voice of people living with the conditions, such as Down syndrome. The professionals can then present balanced, ethical, and non-biased information to expectant parents. The training program equips them with the skills required to support the parents, who then feel more confident in making well-informed choices, free of any pressure. This will help prevent discrimination. Antenatal screening also needs to be based on principles found in the UN Convention on Human Rights in Medicine, the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights.
Thank you. Have we got the workshop report for this?
Hi, I'm Lucy Magley of Hackney Green Party. Who was the rapporteur for this session. She's unfortunately had to leave. She summarised very briefly the report she prepared, which was a summary of what screening is, questions about this and the difference from current testing, and a question about who counts as an accredited practitioner. The straw poll at the end was 13 in favour and none against.
Okay, I understand that there might be a motion to refer back at this point. Is there a motion to refer back? Is someone proposing that?
Refer back.
Okay, maybe not then. I can't see anyone showing. Okay, fair enough. Could I have a speaker against the motion?
Should we remind people in the other room who want to speak, they need to either come to the podium or ask someone on their behalf to come to the podium so that we know you need to speak.
Thank you, yeah. There was someone towards the back, yes.
Hi, Kirsty Jones, Nottingham Green Party. I am a paediatric intensive care nurse, just as a little bit of information.
Could you hold
sorry,
closer?
I'm really sorry that I I'm a paediatric intensive care nurse, just as a point of information. So there is just a few quibbles that I have with this. It does seem to conflict with a lot of our policy on abortion already, and it does also say the thing that really confuses me is screening tests will never be recommended, and I think that it would be good for people to be aware if they are carrying a child that is going to have complex medical needs, that they should be recommended that test if it's appropriate for them by medical professionals.
Thank you. Have we got another speaker in favour of the motion? PD's Policy Development Committee? Yeah.
Yes, Samir Jackson from Policy Development Committee. I'm just responding to the interaction issue. Obviously this came as an accredited motion. There was a bit of discussion at our meeting about this interacting with the policy which we've highlighted there. It was our view there were some within our group that felt that it did contradict that policy, and others felt that it just that it didn't contradict it, but it just interacted with it. So the decision we came to is that wording
it is up to, we therefore leave it up to conference to decide whether it contradicts that policy or whether it's consistent and you're able to have both those at the same time. Obviously, if we approve this, conference must be happy that both of those pieces of policy are in there. If conference can't get rid of that previous policy through voting this motion, just to highlight that. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a legal motion, 3 rows back on this side.
I propose that the motion is referred back to the authors, in particular because of the subsentence of offered, never recommended. I think the point made by the objector to the motion is valid. Such statements should be recommended in certain cases. We can't live on a policy which forwards recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So I'm taking that as procedural motion to refer back. Sorry? Oh, we can't take it. Forward against. Yeah, I understand that. I'm just about to do that. So, does anyone like to speak against the idea of referring back? So, yeah, someone towards the back there with the blue card.
Hello, I have Dashes of the Green Party. I'd like to vote against referring it back because I think we should vote it down entirely. This is very similar to a bill that was put forward in 20...
No, this is about the motion to refer back, it's not about...
Yeah, so I'm asking you to not refer it back, I'm asking you to vote against it so we can get it out of the way rather than having an endless loop of things coming back or not. Because...
Sorry, I'm really sorry, conference. Sorry, the procedural motion was not valid just then, so we're not speaking about that. You are speaking against, so continue, thank you. Yeah, speak against the motion if that's...
Thank you. This is very similar to a motion that was put forward in 2015 by the DUP and the Conservatives about curtailing the right on gender screening in terms of abortion. Now, I know it's a difficult situation, but I think these rules are heavy-handed. Our Green MP is already on record of voting against this in Parliament. I think we should reject this, and I think we should move on.
Thank you. Have we got another speaker in favour of the motion? Another speaker in favour of the motion? Doesn't look like it. Is there anyone in the room? No. So I think I'm going to move to a vote on the motion as it stands. So votes in favour of... Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Hello, Andy Russell, SSE. Sorry, the reason we couldn't take up procedural motion before is because we can't curtail debate if we haven't had 2 speeches for and against. If nobody else wants to speak for or against the motion, we can't take that procedural motion.
I apologise, I didn't understand that, okay. Sorry, so the proposer wants to speak. I'd like another speaker if possible, someone hasn't spoken. Okay, we need another speaker for. The proposer already spoken though, so if there's anyone else who'd like to speak for, someone towards the back there.
Peter Lucas, South East Dorset Green Party. I don't really see why this motion is particularly controversial because all it's saying is that the NHS regulatory standards that are set out have to be adhered to. If those regulatory standards are wrong, then that's a matter for the NHS. All this motion is saying that there is a standard and that everyone who's conducting this test has to adhere to that standard, and that everyone who's carrying out that training has to be a fully trained professional. So I see this as simply a matter of safeguarding and ensuring people's safety. Thank you.
We've got two for to against now, so I'd like to just hold that a second. We're going to take the procedural motion. So is there a speech against referring this back? I'm sorry, a seconder for the procedural motion. Yeah, I've seen 2 people there.
I don't know if there were seconds and their hands up.
Sorry, can I just clarify that? Do we have a seconder for the procedural motion? Yes, okay, thank you. So could I have a speech against referring this back? We've had one?
We've had one.
We have had one. So speech for referring back.
Sorry.
That's what I thought, sorry. So the speech against referring back. Sorry, apologise for that. There you go.
Good afternoon, conference. Richard Ferguson from Out of East Green Party. I think the reason why we shouldn't refer this back is twofold. First of all, it was the Health Policy Working Group that has brought this. Obviously, they would have had a lot of discussion prior to bringing this motion. Second of all, also an accredited motion, which again, Policy Development Committee have backed it. I think that gives it credence, and yeah, we should not vote to refer this one.
Point of information. Yeah, I'll take point of information.
Policy Development Committee decides on accreditation based on whether the motion has met criteria for providing us with documentation. We absolutely do not endorse this motion. We recognise that it has met the conditions for accreditation, but we take no position on whether we endorse this motion.
Okay, we did have someone standing in the other room ready to make a speech in favour. Oh yes, they are there, good. Would you like to make a speech in favour in the other room?
In favour of referring back.
Are you in favour or are you against?
I'm in favour of referring back.
Okay, good. Please speak.
Thank you. It's Chip from Southwest Dorset. I think this motion is not clear as to the issue of disability. And it comes across a whole series of ethical issues about the degree of disability, the impact on the child, as well as the impact on the family. I don't believe that it has taken into account these crucial issues. And because of that, I would like this to be referred back because it needs more thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had a balance there of 4 against, haven't we?
2 for referring back and 1 against.
So one more against referring back. Someone towards the back on the left.
Hi, Kirsten Jones, Nottingham Green Party. I'm sorry that I speak too much. Yeah, I think, like Bernardi was saying, this issue has been brought up beforehand, and I don't think discussing it any further is useful. I think we should just make our opinions known right now.
Thank you very much. We're going to now move to the vote. Can I see all those who are in favour of CO2 being referred back? Please show now. And can we... Do I need to wait for the other room? Sorry. Okay. Thank you. And all those against? Okay. Clearly falls in both rooms. So we're now going to take the vote on the substantive motion CO2. So can I see a vote? All those in favour, please show. Okay, and all those against? I think that clearly falls. Yeah, so the motion falls. So moving on to CO3, which is Animal Sentience and the Animal Welfare Act. It's on page 71 of the agenda. Could I have the proposer for this motion, please?
Can you hear me? Right. My name's Diana Newson from North Herts and Stevenage Green Party. I'm a member of the Greens for Animal Protection and a member of the Policy Working Group for the Animal Rights Policy. Just to say, we've done a lot of talking today. Think of those ones who are completely voiceless. The motion is to insert an extra policy into the AR policy and renumber the rest of the policies. The extra policy acknowledges animal sentience and expands and enhances the Animal Welfare Act 2006. Now, animal sentience is already acknowledged by EU legislation. It exists at the moment. When we go through Brexit, if we do, we will lose it. The UK government is trying to rewrite, but the definition is being delayed. We don't know what it is, when it will appear, and what it's going to look like. So we wanted to put sentience at the heart of Green Party policy. The second part of the policy concerns the UK Animal Welfare Act 2006. This is an important piece of legislation against animal cruelty, We want to expand the Act to cover not only vertebrate species, which it covers at present, but also 2 invertebrate groups, the cephalopods and the decapod crustaceans. The cephalopods is the octopus, the cuttlefish and the squid, and the crustaceans are the crab, the lobster and the crayfish. We want to enhance and strengthen the wording and convert needs, which are given as a list of reminders or suggestions at the moment, convert those to rights. So to summarise, we want to insert a new policy enshrining the acknowledgement of animal sentience into Green Party policy and expand and enhance the Animal Welfare Act of 2006.
Hi, Victoria Snelling, North Herts and Stevenage Green Party. So the workshop was 25 people yesterday morning. There was a little bit of discussion sort of around kind of what the motion was trying to do, but it was largely in favour. The straw poll was 22 for and 2 against.
Thank you. I think there's a procedural motion card just halfway back there, that person there.
Martina Wright, your Green Party. I'm just asking for clarification of the comment from Policy Development Committee on this. What are the implications for elected Greens?
Thank you. Policy Development Committee, can you give a quick one on that, or it's a bit on the spot?
Yeah. It's that this could be interpreted that adding these species into now we're not entirely sure how that would work, whether that's true, but we want to raise that as something that which this motion do.
Could I have a speech against the motion? We've got one. Is that okay? Oh, no, sorry, that's a procedural motion, isn't it? It's a question. Okay, I'll take the question quickly.
Carla Denyer, Bristol Green Party, along exactly the same lines as the question that's just come. Apologies for not being intimately familiar with the policy, but the implication here is that we're adding non-vertebrates to vertebrates that are already protected by similar policy on that basis, as most fish are vertebrates. Are they not already covered? And therefore I'm confused that this makes fishing potentially illegal when it didn't before. Could somebody clarify that for me, please?
I don't know whether that's the Policy Development Committee or whether the proposers.
Doing what they do, and that's why fish, although covered by the Act, and you shouldn't be cruel to feel, you can still fish if you can provide a good reason.
Thanks.
Hello, Alex Price-Milton, Green Party. Against this motion because if you look at the last paragraph in it, it says these protections will apply as a trade restriction on all imported goods where animals are involved in production. That could be read as any imported good where animals have been used in the production of that good at any point. So that doesn't just include anything referred to in the rest of this motion, which is about animal sentience. But as I read that, that could apply to crops where bees have pollinated it, or anything where animals have been used in agriculture. That would then fall under that, as I read it. So I don't think this motion really makes any sense. I don't think we would want to do that. So I I'd urge you to vote it down.
Thank you. Hand up. You want to say something?
Policy development. Based on the where it says the paragraph, we're prepared to change that to say these species, so that it flows with the text of the rest of the motion.
And can I just clarify, because it's a minor textual amendment, do we need to vote on that? On that? Sorry, I was asking a question, yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. I was asking SOC, do we have to do a motion, like, is this a procedural motion you're making, or is it just a minor textual amendment? So the minor textual amendment was out of the last...
Is that point 3? Is it point 3 or is it the first actual paragraph?
Professor is the last.
Okay, so the minor textual amendment is to change that from animals to, say it again, non-sentient?
So these species.
Species. And so can I clarify with SOC, do we need to make a sort of formal procedural motion to textually amend that? And are you making that procedural motion? Okay, it's accepted, thank you. Okay, so we are going with it. So I still need a speech now in favour. We've got a speaker slip. Oh, sorry, yeah, in favour, yeah. So it's Karen Varga. Is Karen Varga able to speak on this? You Karen? The mic will come to you, sorry.
Karen Varga, Mid Worcestershire and the Vale. This is predominantly in response to the Tories who are looking to remove any reference to animal sentience from the Animal Welfare Act and the EU withdrawal bill post-Brexit. Do we want to give the Tories carte blanche to inflict animal cruelty on any animals because, you know, we and have people standing on the doorstep saying to us, the Green Party do not care about animals because you haven't opposed the Tories removing animal sentience from all of the UK legislation so that we can give corporations carte blanche to treat animals cruelly for profit.
Thank you. We've got a speaker against. Person in the front row just here, that's okay.
The reason against Rachel from Sunderland Party. I just think the reason I'm against it is, you know, we're saying, you know, animals are you know, what happens to people who actually, you know, you know, so just not very clear. As I understand, you know, it's like, you know, accidental damage and purposeful damage. So it's just not very clear.
Thank you. I've got someone on BBC holding their hand up. Can you just clarify what that is?
Oh, hello. Tamara Galloway, Bromley Green Party. The way that I read the second to last paragraph is not that it would prohibit any imported goods where animals had been used, but merely imported goods where animals had been abused in their production. So I urge you to vote for the motion. Thank you.
That was a speech in
All right, I just...
No, I'm sorry. I've got two procedures. Take the one further back, if that's okay first, and then we'll take the one further forward, if we can.
Right, overall, I'm actually in favour of this motion. Oh, sorry, David Bailey.
Can you say your name,
David
party,
Bailey,
and then say what your procedural motion is?
David Bailey, South Devon Green Party. Yes, overall, I am in favour of it. We humans have been on this earth for a fraction of time, and these animals are...
Sorry, can you just say what the procedural motion is?
The procedural motion is that it should be amended to... We should be very careful about fishing Right?
Okay, we
Keep
can't
the
amend
fish
from the floor
but
conference.
I'm talking about sustainable fishing.
No, I'm sorry, we can't amend.
Of information, the current clear current scientific consensus is that decapods, crustacean species, are not sentient. We are being asked to classify them as sentient, which would answer.
Thank you. I'm now minded to go to the vote. We have, because one person unfortunately did make a speech in favour that was not what I thought it was. So, well, I am minded to take one quick speech against. Procedural card over on.
Sorry, Tamara wasn't speaking as Policy Development Committee, she just had her hand up.
Okay, it's quite
Can I just say, I did not wish either way that the second to last paragraph does any.
You've made your point before. I would like to take now Mr. Spassek, who's front row here. Thank you.
Very briefly, I have a great concern that the second paragraph says that any animal under human influence, which would presumably include a forest, has those rights. That means the rabbit living in the forest may not be eaten or harmed by the fox. And I think we actually need to clear that up before we can vote for a motion. Where we say wild animals cannot be harmed by other wild animals.
Okay, I think that concludes the debate on this one. We're going to move to the vote unless I have anything else. I'm really over here.
Peter Lucas, South East Dorset Green Party. I did actually put in a slip to speak on this one, so I would like to say something and clarify some of the misconceptions. That's okay.
I'm really sorry, we can't take all the speaker slips. We've got a few and we haven't been able to get through them all because we've got so many people speaking, so sorry about that. Okay, so let's move to the vote. You're using the blue voting cards. Can I see all those in favour of CO3, animal sentience in the animal?
Oh, they're waving in the other room. Sam is looking.
Oh,
frantic.
sorry.
I can't hear you yet, Sam. Just wait a minute.
Hold on, Sam. Hold on.
Okay, try talking.
Go.
Thank you. Sam Richards, North Lancashire Green Party. We seem to have omitted to give the proposers right of reply before the vote is taken.
Apologies, my bad. So can we just give the proposers, can you take 1 minute to just reply to those comments we've had?
Okay, first comment that I'm going to reply to is that we have caught wild animals breaking their leg in the wood. And that's why we say where veterinary treatment is both possible and desirable. If we don't know about the animal, it's not possible. I don't remember any other theories. Oh, decapod crustacea pods is quite widely and deeply researched, reported in several prestigious scientific journals of high impact factor, which I think bests anything that anyone looks up on Google.
Thank you. Vote for CO3, please show. And all those against? Oh, I think that's, I'm not going to... Can we just try that again? I'm sorry, conference, just bear with me. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. And all those against? It passes. We're going to move on to E01. So could I have the proposers and the workshop report ready to over here? E01 is Brexit, a people's vote, and Article 50. Could I have the proposer to speak in favour for 2 minutes?
Can we just remind people that we're very close to not being chorus, so we do need people to stay as long as they possibly can, please. Thanks.
Brexit and Article 50.
Conference. Thank you for prioritising this motion. I hope it's fairly simple and non-controversial, but it's one that we need to have. I don't know about you, but the night that David Dingleby sat on a television screen and said, we predict the result of the referendum vote to be in favour of leave, was a shock. We knew it was
sorry to
close.
interrupt. Can you just give your name and local party?
Oh, I'm sorry. Rob Shepherd from Brighton Hove Green Party. But I don't think it was just a shock to us. I think it was also a shock to the Green Party. We didn't respond greatly to it, except to say at the time, well, we respect the decision to leave. And then in October 2016, we issued an emergency policy statement to say, basically, we respect the decision to leave, but we campaign for a further referendum. And then we left it. There have been 4 conferences since Brexit, and we have not debated or decided what our attitude is actually to Brexit post-referendum. And that's what this motion seeks to sort out. Because, as it stands at the moment, if there is to be suddenly a snap general election, we do not have the policy to go to that election and campaign for a Remain position. If there is a people's vote over the next few months, we do not have the policy to go into that people's vote campaign and campaign for Remain. And I believe it's the will of this party that we should do that. Now, this motion, therefore, commits us to the further referendum. It adds a Remain option to that. It also adds that we, in the event of needing to, in the event that it's declared that there isn't time to hold a referendum, it also commits to extending Article 50 to make time for that. And it makes us a Remain party. Because although we respect the will of the people, I respect the will of the people, and this party respects
15 seconds.
I do not believe that the people voted for this kind of referendum. It didn't vote for the chaos, for the destruction that this Brexit is going to cause for us. So therefore, I believe that we need to stand now and say that we are against Brexit, we are a Remain party, and we will campaign on that position should it come to it.
Could I have the workshop report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Nicholas Lundgren, based in Green Party. So there was a discussion regarding the definition of a referendum and how it would then look like. There was also a straw poll to refer to local parties, 3 and 23 against, or 3 for and 23 against. General straw poll for the motion was 24 for and 4 against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a speaker against the motion? Person just towards the middle back there. Yeah, back there.
Hello, yeah, Duncan McCandless, West Somerset. I think there's 2 kind of central problems to this. One is it says we respect the will of the people, but actually then just goes on and says, well, actually we're going to have a referendum. But perhaps the more technical problem is that it doesn't actually say what the wording of the referendum would be. And that is an absolutely key issue. Because if, for instance, there were 3 questions on the paper, Remain, and then to leave on the deal that was proposed, or no deal, that would obviously split, and that would not be acceptable. So I think for this to have actually any credibility, it needs to be very clear about what the actual question on the referendum would be.
Thank you. I've got someone's holding. No, they're not. Okay. Have we got speech in favour? Okay, that's why you're holding your card. Yes, that person there.
Peter Underwood, Sutton and Green Party. It was responding to that point. I think we need to be positioned as a party to campaign for Remain, regardless of what the wording is on the referendum. We will not have control over that wording, unfortunately, and so we need to be in a position to campaign for what we believe in, even if we don't necessarily agree with the wording in the referendum. So I say support this motion as it stands.
Another speech against? Any more speak against? Okay, person in the middle there.
John Coyne, Liverpool Green Party. like many people here, I felt totally bereaved when we lost that referendum in 2016. And I quite understand why Congress is going to vote for this motion, even though I'm going to vote against it. But I'd like to point out a couple of risks I think we need to be aware of. If we have a vote, we may not win it. If we win the vote, we may not like the outcome. In this country, there'll be a disgruntled rump of people who'll be fodder for the most unpleasant right-wing forces that are going to recruit them because they'll feel they have been betrayed. Also, I don't think it's very good for the European Union at the moment for us to be a member of it. The European Union has got a lot of important things to do. It has to deal with sharing the burden about refugees. It has to deal with Poland and Hungary. The UK has been a hindrance to the European Union. I'd like it to make progress. I'd like us to rejoin. And I fear this is actually the mistaken policy, even though I know what's going to happen.
Thank you very much. Can we get a right of reply for the proposals, please? If you want to just give a quick reply to that.
Yeah, just quickly. I'm not going to make the case for Remain versus Leave, but I'm going to say just specifically on the issue of the will of the people. I had a longer speech prepared, which I sort of tore up halfway through. Basically, that I believe the will of the people has changed fundamentally. It's changed in the lots of the Leave districts of the country, and poll after poll after poll showing that the will of the people now is not the will of the people that was expressed in 2016. I would also say on the specific issue of what the referendum question is, I don't think we can prescribe that now because we don't know the conditions under which we might hit a referendum. It could be that Theresa May was unable to achieve a deal and she comes back to the House of Commons and says, your vote is no deal. And that then triggers, it could trigger a public referendum, it could trigger a general election, whatever. So I don't believe that we should be prescribing that because it may be that there could only be 2 questions on the ballot paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments reminded to move towards the vote? Yes? All those in favour, please show. And all those against. Thank you very much. That passes. EO2 now, that's democratic and sustainable trade deals. Could the proposer and the workshop report please come up to the front?
Phil?
We got a proposal for EO2. Yeah, please come to the front.
Is that yours?
Can we encourage people from groups that haven't spoken as much to put their hands up as speakers as well? Good to have a diverse voice.
Hi, good. Phil Fletcher, St Albans Green Party. Well, we've had Liam Fox going around the world negotiating deals, presumably, which we don't know what he's been negotiating. And this deal gives Parliament the right, that Parliament should be has the right to know what's going on. And we also want to, should be democratic and completely undemocratic. What is being proposed is the versions of CETA the complete agreement is that, which is the one between Canada and the EU. No consultation about this. Very, very unsustainable. Unsustainable things like the scientific principle, which is you have to prove something is not harmful. And this is just one example of why it's bad. Anyways, there are lots of bad things about it. Well, that sounds a bit daft actually, so I have to explain that. They should be support and facilitate fair distribution of wealth. Any fair trade deal should be consult a wide number of stakeholders, not, as has been, just big business, small business, trade unions, environmental groups, etc. any
15 seconds.
And then no lowering the standards of any of food or any things like that. The famous chlorinated chickens. I'm just reading off a few reasons why here, actually. And they should not, it should not be included in any future trade deals.
Thank you. Could I have the workshop report, please? Thank you.
Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Nick Slunger, Islington Green Party. So there was a discussion regarding the definition of EU Green Party in paragraph 3. Also in paragraph 10, there was some confusion about what the lowering of standards would entail. There was also a straw poll to refer back 6 for and 12 against. The straw poll for the motion was 22 for and none against. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Can you just wait for the microphone? Name and
Michał Czątkowski, Sunday on Green Party and also the international coordinator. As someone has just realized, well, there's no EU Green Party, and that just doesn't make sense. It has to be either the European Green Party or the European Green Group in the European Parliament. It doesn't make sense if you say EU Green Party. There's nothing like that. It doesn't exist. Thank you.
Okay, so I understand that SOC are okay with this as a minor section.
So we are agreed, the Policy Development Committee has also agreed that we would take this to be the Green Party group in the European Parliament.
Thank you. Is that a procedural motion towards the back there? Can't quite tell. Or not?
David Bailey, Southampton Green Party. Yes, at number 10, it should say any lowering of current standards or existing standards.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have a ruling on that as well? Whether that is minor and whether you can you say that one more time, please? Whoever was proposing that procedural motion.
Any lowering of current
Can you
standards?
just say it one more time? Are you still there?
Yeah, I would say existing standards.
Number 10.
Where is this?
Number 10.
Any lowering of existing standards regarding food, manufactured chemicals. Number 10.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So if you got that, would you be able to accept that one?
I'm not sure that's minor. I think that does change what the motion says. One says that standards can only go up. We set current levels as a benchmark, which they can't fall below. That's a materially different thing, so I don't think that's minor.
Thank you. And there's one more procedural motion just here.
Okay.
It's just in relation to the previous minor textual amendment. I was wondering European Green Party rather than Green Party group in the European Parliament, just because I think Green Party group in the European Parliament is potentially more contentious because that's a group that we potentially will not have any democratic contribution to in the future, whereas we will continue to in the European Green Party.
Okay, we're at risk of getting into debate about semantics, very, very close semantics here about whether we should, and we're going to have to keep going on each one of these, and it's tricky. I would suggest that if we, sorry, go on, Policy Development Committee, go on.
Well, I would agree that that is an important distinction to make, actually. So, and possibly that we should have a vote on it, okay, so that we can clarify. But yes, they are two different bodies, so I think it is material.
What I might do, conference, is just all of these procedural motions. People said minor textual things. Take them all as one, and if we vote for all of them, we keep them, and if we don't, we. Well, okay, that's okay.
Hello, Andy of the Russell SOC.
Sorry, just SOC, yeah, go on.
Sorry, I don't think changing it to European Green Party would be a minor textual amendment. I think what is meant by EU Green Party is the Green Party group in the EU. I don't think what it means is the European Green Party, which is a different thing. What with the minor textual amendment that's up there is just clarify what is meant. What is being proposed is that we change what it says. We can't change it, can we?
Okay, I've got another procedural motion just back here. I'm sorry, conference, but there's people putting cards up and I've got to take them.
I'd like to make, I say Bristol Green Party.
I'd like to make a procedural motion that we take it in parts and point 3 is separate from the rest of the motion because it's making a statement that we will adhere to any statement that the European Green Party makes in future before we know what they are. Whereas it's... But anyway, I would suggest that we take it in parts with point 3 as separate from the rest of the motion. I don't know if other people feel that.
Okay. Sorry, there's a procedure there.
So the procedural motion is what, sorry? To take which part in parts?
Can we just acknowledge the other room? We're aware of your procedural motion. We'll come to you in a minute.
Okay, so we're going to have, I think that is actually a procedural motion to take it in parts. So we can take speech against taking it in parts. Yeah, sorry, can I just check that? That's valid, isn't it, SOC? So just take, so it's taking 3, it's taking part 3 as one part and all the rest of the motion as another part, okay? Is everyone clear on that, yeah?
I think the problem is...
Can you please have a microphone, sorry? Right, SOC, go on.
If a motion is taken in parts, each part must make sense by itself. In other words, if we're separating off part 3, we must accept that part 3 would stand alone if the rest of it fell, and would make sense as a part in itself.
Okay. That does seem to suggest that we can't take that in parts because it doesn't make sense. Or do we have to take it? Oh, I see, sorry, I misunderstood. Okay. So there's a proposal to take it in parts, and I'm going to now ask for a speaker against taking it in parts, please. We did have some procedural motion cards, but I'm minded to just keep going with this because we need to keep...
Well, we have to finish this one.
So, yeah. So let's just take, has anyone got a speech against, sorry, taking it parts? Speak. At the back there.
Dennis Walker, South East Essex. For 2 reasons. Firstly, if the rest of the motion fell, all we would be inserting would be point 3. And as that's an element of a list, it really doesn't make sense on its own. For a start, that it would need editing. The other reason that I disagree with Faith is that I think it should actually be referred back. And we shouldn't waste further time.
Okay, so that was a set motion while you were making a speech against. I don't think I can really accept that. You've got to put your hand up to it.
We have a motion though. If you have your hand out, we're just going to take a while to get there.
It's going to take a while to get there. We've got to take what each one does. I propose that we take a vote on whether to take it in parts, as was suggested. We've had a speech against and the proposer, so we've had one of each in that way. Okay, so can we take a vote on whether to take it in parts? So remember, it's just number 3. That section is one part, and the rest of it is the rest. That's the other part. Okay, so all those in favour of taking it in parts? And all those against? Okay, so we have all these. Please show if you have a procedural motion again.
I think the other room will be waiting.
Yes, so we'll go to the room. So let's go to the room. Please, can you give your procedural motion?
Thank you. Sam Richards, Lancashire Green Party of information. I'm sorry to say the Chair has been misdirecting conference around the issue of minor textual amendments. Conference does not get to decide on minor textual amendments. It is a decision taken by the Policy Development Committee. They can take the advice of Standing Orders Committee and probably ought to, but definitely it is not something that is voted on by conference.
Okay, so I'm in a position where I've now got to decide whether that was all okay, what we just did. I personally think we should just move on. It's a good point that's been made, and we'll move on to the next procedural motion that we've got. So who was that?
Okay, there's one down the very far back on my left. Yeah.
Marina Term, Shrewsbury, North Shropshire.
I think that we should refer this back to have more work done on it and not take up any more time at conference at this stage.
Thank you. Have we got a speech against referring back?
Conclusion card?
Person on the second row here.
Hello, Dowding, North Lancashire Green Party. It seems to me that we've had a little bit of a kerfuffle about point 3, and we've decided to keep it in. It might not be perfect, but it's good enough. And the rest of the motion, it seems to me, is perfectly fine. We need something on this issue, so I think we've been hijacked by very minor issues. The motion is fine. There's nothing desperately wrong with it at all, even with part 3 in there, and I think we should just go ahead and have the vote.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot to ask. Have we got a second and refer back? Yes, there's someone about that. Okay, so we are going to now vote on whether to refer back. Okay, so all those in favour of referring back, please vote. And all those against? Thank you. I don't think there are any more procedural motions. We had 2 of each, or not?
There were a few procedural motions that we haven't dealt with, but I think they've been raised.
Are you minded to go to the vote? Okay.
Vote.
Well, okay, so what this is EO2. All those in favour of EO2? Thank you, and all those against? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Yes.
We've got 13 minutes left of plenary. We had given aside 10 minutes for one emergency motion. So I'm going to ask for a quick straw poll. Do you want to have one more motion and then the emergency motion, or do you want to have? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go. We're going to. Okay, we'll go with EO. Sorry, what's next on the line? It's DO3. That's DO3. Oh yeah, DO3 on fast tracking quite hilariously.
On page 74 of your booklet.
So can I have the proposal for DO3, please?
DO3 on page
DO3.
74. DO3.
Thank you. Conference, thank you.
Right. Just to explain it, SOC have suggested to the chair that we alternate D and E motions from now on to try and get through as many of those as possible. DO3 was proposed, is a proposal to change very slightly the number for fast tracking of motions so that they don't have to take up time during debate in conference. It's designed for those that are non-contentious and, as has been pointed out on the report, may not otherwise be heard. And obviously, because of the amount of time we knew we would lose at this conference for the holistic review, not lose, but use for the holistic review, we wanted to fast track as much as we could. So we put forward a group of those. We also put forward 2 E-motions, which were enabling motions, which are just to allow someone to go away and look at an area of policy and perhaps come back with suggestions for changing it. When that came up in the SOC report, one person voted against by accident, so it had to be taken back into the agenda. When they came and explained, we had a little vote at the beginning of one of the sessions yesterday, and again, one person voted against it coming back in. They had reasons for it, but essentially saying that we can't go ahead with reviewing this section because we don't know what the review might look like. Now, it's quite a small number, is one person. In the 4 years that I've been on Standing Orders Committee and we've proposed things for fast tracking, 3 is the largest number of hands that I've seen go up, and those items have not then been fast tracked. In one conference, one person who objected to fast tracking on principle stopped any of them going ahead with fast tracking. Now, what I'm proposing, what SOC are proposing in this is that we raise the number to 10. It's still quite a small number.
15 seconds.
It's the same number that's required to call for a card vote, was the logic for going for 10. But as you'll see from the report from the workshop, that was questioned.
Thank you. Have we got a workshop report?
Yes, I have the workshop report.
Okay.
I'm now Martin Collins of North Tyneside. The one concern he says that was expressed during the workshop, the major one, was about the number, and it was a suggestion it might perhaps be smaller than that, to be 5 or 6 or some other number. And I suppose that would imply that it had to be referred back because that number needed to be changed, or just voted down. The count, sorry, the straw polls on his other sheet, there were 2 people in favour of this fast-tracking motion and 5 against. Thank you.
Okay, would anyone like to speak against this motion?
Hello, I don't know if you remember in an earlier...
You give your name and level.
Oh, hope. Ronald Stewart, Haringey Green Party. You may remember that in an earlier plenary session I called for a card vote that caused a massive kerfuffle trying to find 10 proposers. It took a lot of conference time. This is about fast tracking. The clue is in the name. It should be fast. If anybody, the idea of fast tracking is it excludes any debate from the motion because we're all unanimously agreed on that motion. If one person does want to make a point in the debate, they should be able to, and they should be able to express that quickly without wasting conference time trying to find 10 people to agree with them. So I encourage you to vote against this motion.
Thank you. I've got a speech in favour of the motion. On this side, yeah, thank you.
Hello, Benali Handashes from the Green Party. These rules date back to when we had less than 10,000 members. We're now over 40,000. I suggest we scale them up proportionally. One per member having the power to end fast track might have worked back then. We're a much bigger party. And also add, overall, will save time. The fact is, even 1 or 2 motions being added back into the agenda adds 10, 20 minutes. I'm sure we can count to 10 quicker than we could debate a policy motion in its entirety.
Thank you. I'd like another speaker against the motion. Okay, this person in the middle here.
Paul Suzanne Cornwall. I think that it's a bit of a constitutional outrage to have any fast tracking at all, and I think that there should be no vote at all. But if there is to be one, let it be just one person. The reason for that is that this party is controlled by members, not by SOC, and the members decide the order of motions on the agenda. They decided on a ballot on the website. There is no reason for anyone else to interfere with this prioritization process.
Thank you. We've taken 2 for and 2 against, I think. I think we're going to move to the vote. Oh, sorry, I've got a procedural motion card just here. And another over there.
Hello, Richard Fair, Central Nationalist Green Party. It's not a procedural motion, it's just a panel of information. The membership don't decide the order, we just give a preference to the order.
Thank you. And the person over here. Thank you very much. So that's been covered. Have we got the right of reply? Do you want to just quickly say something? Are you okay?
Please vote for it.
Thank you. We're going to go to the vote. So all those in favour of motion DO3, fast tracking, please show. And all those against. Thank you, conference. That passes. So we're going to go on to the final thing. We're going to have an emergency motion. Have we got Elizabeth Mansfield? Yeah, Elizabeth Mansfield. Is Elizabeth Mansfield here? What is it?
Procedural card in the corner.
Just a procedural motion.
Lord Houston, Cheshire East Green. I move that we extend this session by 15 minutes.
Inclusion card.
Inclusion card over there, please. Yeah.
Jen Lawbers, the Green Party.
Elizabeth's here.
I made a point earlier on when a similar proposal was made that I had to run out as a cheering in an earlier session yesterday because I had childcare responsibilities, the creche closes. people have to leave, there are staff working in the creche. We are excluding people with caring responsibilities by extending the period.
Thank you. That is generally what happens at conference, so I'm minded to just take this as read that we're not going to extend time. Thank you. So can we go on to the motion? Thank you. You've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Elizabeth Mansfield and I'm from North Surrey Green Party. This motion is entitled The Truth About Zane Now, Not Another Hillsborough. The Truth About Zane campaign began when a 7-year-old child, this child, Zane Gabangbola, lost his life in the disastrous flooding of the River Thames in 2014. So why, you might ask, am I bringing this as an emergency motion? Truth and justice campaigns have a history of grinding slow. It took 22 years for the Hillsborough families to finally get justice. But during those long years, there were watershed moments. And the Truth About Zane campaign has one right now, because the Public and Commercial Services Union has taken an unprecedented initiative in this case to set up a new national campaign committee to fight for truth and justice for Zane, alongside the Fire Brigades Union, Unison and the TUC. And the little old North Surrey Green Party, who've been diligently campaigning for the truth about Zane since the tragedy, have also been invited to take a seat at the table. Natalie Bennett and Jonathan Bartley have both travelled to meet Zane's parents and publicly supported the campaign. But today I'm asking conference to offer the endorsement of the National Green Party as the committee begins its important work. Zane lived, unbeknown to the family, adjacent to an historic, unregulated landfill site.
15 seconds.
On the night of the tragedy, the FBU found hydrogen cyanide in Zane's home. Zane's father is now paralysed with a medical diagnosis of hydrogen cyanide poisoning.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, you have run out of time. Really sorry. Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against?
Point of order, Chair.
Okay.
This is an emergency motion that requires a suspension of standing orders. We need to be asked if we wish to suspend standing orders to hear it before we actually take any speeches.
Very good point. We're going to suspend. Okay, we say that's a proposal. We've got a second of suspending standing orders. Thank you. All those in favour of suspending standing orders? Thank you. And all those against? Thank you. So suspending standing orders to hear this. We have heard it a little bit in the wrong order. It's just. I think we have to read it out, don't we? So okay. Can anyone just quickly read it out? Yes. Because we can't see it from here, sorry.
Emergency motion. In order to broaden the scope of the Green Party's interaction with the new Truth About Zane campaign committee to be funded and facilitated by the PCS Union, we're asking conference to support North Surrey Green Party's participation in this committee with the weight of the National Party, and for conference to support the committee's initial core objectives: a full independent panel-led inquiry into the death of 7-year-old Zane Gabangbola, ensure that all historic landfill sites have been identified and mapped against floodplains, prioritise tried and tested flood protection methods in both residential and landfill areas, such as river dredging and riverbank protection. Ensure that our public bodies, such as the Environment Agency, local authorities, and the Department of Environment, are privy to learning from problematic projects as Jubilee Channel. Knowledge is a matter of public safety and must be made publicly available to inform future projects. Update local authorities, emergency services, the public, developers and local flood resilience teams regularly on the position of landfills liable to flood.
Thank you very much. Have we got any speeches against this emergency motion? No, I think we'll move to the vote then. All those in favour of this emergency motion? Thank you very much. And all those against? I think that is
Hang on,
unanimous.
there's something happening in the other room.
Oh, hang on, someone stood up in the other room. Let's just hear from the other room. Hello, other room.
No, we can't hear you
We
yet.
can't hear you yet.
Hello?
Hello, yes,
Hello.
let's speak
Hi
to
there. Yes, it's with great sadness that I'm making us. Andy Fearing's Birmingham Rosendale Green Party. With great sadness that I'm making a speech against this motion. I agree with Martin.
I'm really sorry, but we already...
Yeah, you did, but you didn't take the speech against because you didn't spend any time.
It was raised, but we didn't
Okay,
see
so
it.
unfortunately that vote didn't count, so let's just... Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
We have to leave the room in about 3 minutes. If you
Sure, it's just that in one of the examples of dealing with flood protection, it said we had some horrific flooding in 2015, and part of the reason for that is because people believe that river dredging is good for flooding. It's actually not. It speeds up the rate at which water transfers from hills down to towns and floods it quicker. So, because of that reference to river dredging as a flood protection measure, I'm speaking against the motion.
Thank you. I'm minded because we've had one speaker who's proposed a motion, one against it. We should just move to the vote. Is that okay, conference? Okay, so can I see all those who are in favour of this motion? No, I've started the motion. No, I've started now. No, I'm sorry, no, we've not got time. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. And all those against. Thank you very much, conference. Have we got any announcements to make? Give your lanyards back if you could. And thank you everybody for coming. It's been a long one.
Hey! Okay guys, thank you so much for being with us. Long journey, but at least we did some work today, the last few hours.
And thank you to our final.
Thank you guys. Peace out.